The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. So.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
All right, Idaho Signal is on the air. Welcome back, everybody. It's day 2 of the legislative session here in Idaho, and we are thrilled to be back live with you all. Yesterday was the Governor Little's State of the State address. I don't know. I think we should call it the State of the Republic address. Let's just make sure everybody knows that we are a republic. That being said, it is it's January 7, 2025. Yesterday was January 6th. And, we focus on Idaho here, but obviously yesterday was a big day, big anniversary day in our country. But also the certification of Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance as president and vice president went off without a hitch yesterday. So I'm sure we all saw the videos from that. But we're glad that things are moving along as smoothly as can be at the national level as we take focus here and in Idaho. Okay, so we've got a great show lined up. We're going to hopefully have Senator Tammy Nichols, Representative Clint Hostetler joining us here in a little bit. But what we wanted to make sure that we do is I need to emphasize that we are here to help you. Right? So help me help you by amplifying your voice. So you'll see at the bottom here, you can email the program at signal@citizensallianceidaho.org, or you can also call a voicemail and just give me your rant. I want to hear your rants. I want to hear what the issues matter to you most at that phone number, 208-402-4915. So yes, boost your signal by sending us a voicemail and we will play it on the air. You can also do it live while we're broadcasting. You can hit in the comment section on whatever platform we're on. We're on X, we're on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. We'll post this stuff later to Telegram. So please leave us your comments and we'll show them up on the screen. So we'll get that going. Okay, we have Senator Tammy Nichols with us. Let's see if we can get her in there. Hey, hello, Senator. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, we always love having you on here, especially after a day like yesterday with Governor Little's address. He made the joke that he's going to keep it short, and everybody seemed to appreciate that much. It was a lot different than last year when he had a video presentation and he kind of went on about a lot of different things. But we wanted to get your reaction to Governor Little's speech, what the agenda looks like, and then get into what your agenda is going to look like as well. So. What do you think of Little's speech yesterday?
Yeah, so it was interesting. It was definitely different than what he's done in the past, and it was kind of like the promises tour, right? So there was all these different things that he is promising, and some of them I think that sound great. Yeah, let's give more tax relief. Let's look into helping school choice. Just different things along those lines. And that's our agenda as far as the legislative body goes, is to continue on tax relief, to continue to deregulate, and then supporting school choice. So if and hopefully the governor's ideas align with the ideas that the legislative body has, and if so, then it's going to work out great for the people of Idaho. If not, then we're probably going to have some interesting discussions and interesting bills that come through, and we'll just have to see how that goes forward. But it was a short speech, and I think that was great. I think that was good. I think it was appreciated, and we want to hold our promises to the people of Idaho. I mean, we had this great election that conservatives did really, really well. And the people spoke loud and clear that they want Idaho to go into a conservative direction and continue that progression.
Yeah,
so
that's
one of the ways is to do this.
and I wanted to touch on that a minute here because do you think that Governor Little is kind of reading the tea leaves here? I mean, elections have consequences. We had a fantastic primary and general election when it comes to conservative candidates, and then of course Trump winning the White House with a big America First, Make America Great Again agenda. The vibe has shifted nationally and in our state. And do you think he's going to be I guess are you hopeful? Are we hopeful with the changes?
He is reading the tea leaves, and he mentioned several times about supporting Trump's agenda and about making sure that Idaho is following that path forward to help Trump in the things that he's trying to accomplish. So I think he is reading the tea leaves. It was, overwhelming in the elections, the general elections, with Trump winning, with what we saw happening across the state with the elections. And like I said, we have more conservatives in the legislature now than we've ever had before. And so I think it's wise of him to read those tea leaves and to get on that train with us.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, you mentioned school choice, and I know that was something 2 years ago. You had brought a bill very early in the session that was sort of modeled after what Arizona is doing, or what some other states are doing with education savings accounts. It didn't make it out of the Senate floor, and then this past session, there was another bill that tried to deal with the same issue using refundable tax credits. What are you hearing this year? You feel like ESAs are coming back? Do you feel like the tax credit's going to be enhanced or pushed through? And where does your heart lie in this?
Yeah. So when we brought forward 1038, that was Senator Brian Lenny and myself. We kind of just shot the moon. Arizona had the best model at that time, and they still have a really good model. In fact, yesterday we had an organization that brought in the former Arizona governor to talk about school choice and, really what the truth is behind it. Because we hear a lot about how Arizona just went into the negative with all the school choice and property taxes went up. And that's not how that went down, actually. But yeah, school choice is the hot topic. We're one of the last states to go down this pathway. Most of the states, here have already done some sort of good school choice, whether an ESA or a tax credit. But yeah, so we pushed that narrative as hard as we could in Senate Bill 1038, because we really wanted to get that discussion going. And now we're seeing more people open to it. We heard the governor yesterday talking about $50 million to set aside for school choice type programs. So that's really, really good. That's what we want to do. We want to progress down that road.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a few different bills, either in the form of a tax credit or an ESA. My heart is to where we start getting that needle moving. So whatever we can do to start moving that needle the right direction, and what will be the best for the people of Idaho. I do want to see a full ESA model eventually, and most states do go to that, even if they've started with a tax credit or an ESA, but it's limited or capped. But most states do end up going to a full ESA or a full tax credit, after they've had it in place for a little bit. So I just want to move that needle the right direction.
Yeah, that's great, and it just goes to show that even a loss, as we can put it, back in 2023 with the defeat of 1038, that really was also a catalyst to really show that there was a new day has arrived, and we saw it happening across the country and so forth, and so it's going to happen here. So yeah, we're pretty optimistic too to see something happen and get it going. So I'm really happy for that.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. So then what? So now I love having you on and talking to you about your bills, because sometimes you have such forward-thinking bills that people think are like, what are you talking about? And then 6 months later, and then 6 months later, it's like headline news because it's happening somewhere else or something. So what can we expect? I mean, you were big on AI and protecting against that. Your vaccines in the food supply and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. What can we expect from Senator Tammy Nichols this year?
Yeah, so some of the things that I have already on my scope is, we have a lot of people that have moved into our state, and I get calls, and one of the first things that people want to know is, when can they purchase a gun, and can they have chickens? So guns, we do pretty good. There's not too many problems. That's pretty cut and dry. But I'm finding that the chicken issue is becoming more and more of a thing. So I actually do have a piece of legislation that has to do with chickens, so that people can have chickens. I'm not talking like roosters, but hens. And that's really because I want to help people become more self-reliant. We've seen the price of eggs over the last few years.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Continue to go up like crazy. Chickens are a great alternative to be able to have, on your property. They're really easy to maintain and take care of. They eat scraps. They take care of bugs. And they give you eggs. So that's one thing. I also am bringing back my anti-swatting bill. Swatting is becoming more and more of an issue all across the nation, and that's where people make prank phone calls basically to try to put the SWAT team out on a call, even though it's a fake call. Right now in Idaho, all that the punishment is a misdemeanor and a false police report. And there's been people that have actually died because of swatting incidences. So we're bringing that back, making a few little changes. That's to protect the public, protect our police, and to make sure that our tax dollars are being utilized correctly. And if people are doing that sort of stuff, that they're going to be held responsible for those things.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
We're working on some adoption issues. We're working on some tax issues. I think we'll have a few surprises that will be coming out later on that people might be really kind of surprised about. But, the goal is really to continue to uphold our values, our traditions, and make sure Idaho is going in the right way, and to protect those freedoms and rights that we hold dear, and why we have people coming to our state.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Well, I have to put you on the spot here because you're a member of the Senate, and a lot of great bills come out of the House, and then they get sent to a drawer in the Senate. And I know you're not largely responsible for that, of course, but we have new leadership now in the Senate. You have a shuffling of some chairs here and vice chairs there. What what is the sentiment when the Senate is sitting together and you guys are having your caucus or whatnot? Has there been any sort of promise that bills that get overwhelmingly passed in the House will at least get a hearing?
Yeah. That's been one of my issues ever since I've was in the legislature, is to watch, bills go into drawers. And a lot of the time, not even because of the subject of the bill or what's in it, but just because of the person that's trying to run it. And that's a really bad way to try to legislate. So I think there's been a lot of input to our new leadership that we don't want to see that happen. There has to be some discretion, and I get that. And I'm actually chairing a committee this session myself. So I was put as the chairman for the agriculture committee. And that's one of my big things is I don't want to be drawing bills. Like I said, there has to be a little bit of discretion. But I think that bills should have their day. And so that has been made clear. So I'm hoping we don't see as much of that transpire as we have in the past. So that's something that I really am hopeful for, and I think our leadership understands that.
Okay, good. All right, well, we're going to let you go here. One last thing. When do the Don't Tread on Me license plates, when do those become available? When can we choose them?
So those are going to be coming out soon. We're changing a couple of things because we overwhelmingly heard that people want the traditional yellow and black license plate. Right now in Idaho law, there's a section that you have to have a red, white, and blue element to it. So we're making that change. In fact, we almost have that draft done to be able to make sure that it's just the standard yellow and black, because that's what looks really awesome. That's what people want. And so we're making that little change really quick at the beginning of the session so that we can do it the right way the first time, and then they'll be available.
All right. Awesome. Great. All right. Well, Senator Nichols, thank you so much for joining us. Real quick, where can people follow you and keep tabs on your work?
Yeah, so you can follow me at my website's nicholsforidaho.com. You can follow me on social media, usually under Nichols for Idaho. You can also sign up for my Substack on my website. I'll be putting out weekly updates on what's going on in the legislature and how you can get involved. So just go to Nichols for Idaho.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Senator. We'll check in with you again.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Excellent. Okay. Hey guys, we're going to skip this break and just go right into these clips here. We'll just keep the momentum going. We want to share with you just a couple of clips from the speech yesterday. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, we streamed the whole thing live yesterday. So if you do want to go back and watch it, just hit yesterday's program and you can go ahead and watch yesterday's program and fast forward to the near end. Governor Little's speech was only about 25 minutes, perhaps, maybe 30 tops, I think. So I believe that there was a couple of interesting bites that we wanted to pull here. One of them was kind of your basic checklist, but I wanted to point out something with one of his opening lines here about Trump's vision for America. So let's watch that.
Just 2 months ago, on the eve of a historic presidential election, America teetered between two very different futures for the next 4 years and beyond. One future guaranteed the status quo, out of control federal spending, a lawless open border, sky-high inflation, onerous regulations, and a depressed economy that traps families' potential. Americans rejected that failed path and instead re-elected a man with a very different vision for America, Donald Trump. President Trump's vision for America actually looks a lot like Idaho.
Actually, it looks a lot like Idaho. That's what he said there. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of a campaign that Citizens Alliance launched last summer. Idaho is what America was. We've played the ad on here. We'll play it today. But it's so nice to kind of hear that that's exactly the sentiment, right? So Governor Little, if you want to reach out to me and have your team talk to me about Idaho is what America was campaign, let's do it. I don't want to use taxpayer dollars though, or maybe we can. No, we shouldn't. But we'll just roll it out there. So if you want to adopt that, feel free to adopt that phrase. That's great. Okay. Next up here is this clip with Governor Little's sort of checklist of good accomplishments, and this is interesting. It's interesting to note, and also to what we didn't hear as well. So go right ahead.
Together, we promised Idahoans historic tax relief and delivered back-to-back tax cuts for Idaho families and businesses. We delivered property tax cuts and a new lower flat income tax. We increased the grocery tax rebate, and we stand ready to implement President Trump's promised tax cuts. And my Keeping Promises plan continues the trend. I'm proposing yet another round of tax relief for hardworking Idaho families, $100 million. On top of the $4.6 billion we have already given back to Idahoans over the past 5 years. We also promised to deliver unprecedented investments in schools, the American worker, water, roads, fire, outdoor recreation, and other infrastructure without raising taxes.
Okay, that's the one that last line there. Unprecedented investments in a laundry list of things there. All the other stuff, the deregulation, the taxes, and keep cutting taxes and that sort of thing. But this idea that we just need to keep spending and spending. We need to cut spending. We need to cut departments. We need to get rid of so many things in the not only in the federal government, which he commented about, we got to cut federal spending, but you also have to cut state spending. You have to cut it, man. And it's coming. I mean, this whole new budget process that we saw go in last year, where they separated the budgets for each of the departments or each of the areas of government, where you have a maintenance budget or your base budget, and then you have all the extra things that you want to add on to or whatnot. Like those things are separate now, and so you can fund the basic necessities of government, and then squabble over all this other waste that we shouldn't even be dealing with anyway. But at least there's a path forward here to cut spending, and they better do it. They better do it. And we don't need to have tons and tons of investment in all these other different agencies. We need to take money that is being wasted over here. A lot of it over in the Department of Health and Welfare or all these different divisions that deal with specific parts of society, that we should all be treated equal, right? So we should take that money and throw it in to give it back to the people through these tax cuts, or spend it wisely on the infrastructure of our growing state. We just passed 2 million people in Idaho. Incredible. All right. The next clip. This was a big win that the governor had nothing to do with, largely, but this is where our society's headed. The pendulum is swinging, folks. Let's watch this clip.
Idaho was the first state to take action to defend women's sports. I'm incredibly proud of Boise State University's women's volleyball team for standing up for what's right. I thought that would get Barb up anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Big standing ovation for the Boise State University women's volleyball team. If you followed that story, you know that they stood up against it was San Jose State and having a biological male on their team, and they said they're not gonna play. And he gave a shout out there to Barbara Ehart, Representative Barbara Ehart, who has been the tip of the spear when it comes to this issue, not only in Idaho, but across the nation. I mean, she's been traveling with Riley Gaines, fighting for women's sports and keeping biological men out of women's sports. And so, there's going to be some action still to have here in Idaho. We're going to get into that next. Barbara Ehart was at the House State Affairs Committee this morning, and we'll get into that just after this quick break. Thanks, guys.
And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape, because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world. once silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
All right, we are back. That's what I'm talking about, man. America, Idaho is what America was, and Governor Little put the button on it yesterday. It's pretty good. Let's hope he lives up to it. Let's hope he protects that. You know, it was great having Senator Nichols in here to kind of walk us through a lot of that reaction and stuff. And we will be awaiting Representative Clint Hostetler out of the Magic Valley, District 24. He was invited to come on the program today. But just a quick note on having the legislators on the program during the workday and during the session. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen, and that's okay because they are working, and that is good. That's what we need. So should they arrive, we'll go to him. But in the meantime, I wanted to let everybody know we have America's Idaho's, everyone's favorite committee, the House State Affairs Committee. This is where all of the big juicy bills come through that cause a lot of controversy, but they're great. The committee is in great hands, and we lost Representative Julian Young was the vice chair of the House State Affairs Committee, along with Chairman Brent Crane, of course, and she lost her primary race by 2 votes. Really heartbreaking, and there's a whole story behind that as well, which is maybe we'll get into it another time. But she's no longer in the House, and so the vice chair position actually went to Representative Heather Scott, and that committee met today for the first time to do what is called a print hearing. This is where representatives or legislators will present draft bills. We kind of went over last year. We went over talking about how bills get through the committee. And so maybe we'll add a link to that if you want to go ahead and watch that. But real briefly, when you have a piece of legislation, it gets a routing slip number. It's not a bill yet, and it needs to be presented to a committee where people vote to agree to have the piece of draft legislation printed, and then it gets assigned a bill number, and then it becomes public. So this draft legislation is not public yet. Nobody can read it unless the sponsors want to share it themselves, but generally they don't. And so today in the House State Affairs Committee, Barbara Ehart stood up to put forward a resolution that would thank and recognize the bravery and the courage that the women's volleyball team at Boise State had when they were faced with being scheduled to compete against San Jose State, which had a biological male. Every time this team was scheduled to meet and play San Jose State, they forfeited the game, and they said, we are not going to put our women at risk by sending them out onto the court with a biological male there's tape out there that we've seen where we've seen biological male playing on women's volleyball teams. And one time, one of these people spiked the ball so hard it hit the player on the opposite side, who was a woman, and she has suffered brain injury from it. And so it's not, with the amount, you know the story, you know what's going on with the biological males in women's sports. It's completely unfair and it's dangerous. And so the BSU decided we're not going to play against San Jose State. And so they forfeited two regular season games. And then they even made a bolder, bigger, courageous decision. And Barbara Ehart outlines that here.
Real integrity to me came when Boise State had to go, or not had, but got to go to the Mountain West tournament. And at the Mountain West tournament, they beat Utah State in the first round, scheduled to play San Jose State. Now, if you understand sports, you understand this is their only path to the NCAAs. This is a tournament. If they say no and they forfeit their game like they've done 2 other times, they don't have a chance. This is where real integrity came forward, and Boise State forfeited that game. We do have 2 Boise State representatives here, Mr. Chairman, and when we have the hearing, hopefully we would have the hearing committee. They may also want to say something. We're hoping to have a player or 2 here. Let me also just say, if you notice on here that we do take the time to call out the Mountain West. This should never have happened. Shame on the Mountain West for allowing this to happen and not changing their policies. Even bigger shame, we call out the NCAA, Charlie Baker, for allowing this to happen. It should never have happened.
That's right.
Their regressive policies are putting men in women's sports, men in single-sex spaces, and it's not right.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Look, I'm telling you, Coach Barbara Ehart, Representative Ehart, is like the definitive lawmaker in the country on this issue. She's a former Division I basketball coach herself. She talks about how Title IX changed her life, and she's been traveling the country with Riley Gaines and a whole group of people fighting on this issue. And we stand beside her on this one. This is truly, truly great. So again, the committee ended up printing this resolution, so it will come back for a hearing where people can testify for and against and all that stuff. But we expect this thing to sail through, hopefully. And if you notice during Brad Little's governor address, when he commented on the volleyball team, everybody stood up to clap except the few Democrats in the back. You know, it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre how that happens. Like, you can't stand up, and it's just these Democrats, man. They're just so, talk about a cult, right? Okay, we'll get back to the State Affairs Committee in a little bit because Representative Heather Scott presented another resolution. So we'll get to that in a bit. But Brian Allman, of course, is with us here. Let's bring Brian in if he's ready. Hey, Brian, how are you today?
Hey, Matt, it's good to see you again.
Yes, and so Governor Little's, we were going over Governor Little's address. We kind of hit on some high points and, talk about the volleyball team and Trump's, wanting to help Trump's vision for America and that sort of thing. What was your takeaway from the speech, and what did you hear around the Capitol?
The biggest thing that jumped out at me about the speech was that there wasn't any single central big program. 2 years ago, he introduced the Launch Grant, giving money to high school graduates to go to certain workforce training programs. Last year, he announced a $2 billion school bonding program that would do, repair school facilities and infrastructure and, attempt to take some of the burden off of local property taxpayers. There wasn't anything really big this year. It was just all more of the same, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, he seems to think Idaho's going pretty well, so he doesn't need to, do any big initiatives this time. But, there were really no surprises. Perhaps the most noteworthy thing was the $50 million for school choice, which, of course, matches the amount in Representative Wendy Horman's presentation earlier that morning, which tells me that they're probably at least mostly on the same page on that issue.
Yeah, and I think, and this is one of the things that Idaho has kind of been lagging in as we watch other, deep red Republican states, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Arizona, of course, leading the way for a while. Do you think the pressure got to Brad Little on this issue when he shows up to these governors' meetings and stuff and says, man, it's not looking good for you?
Well, I think he sees which way the wind is blowing. If say whatever else you want about Governor Little, he pays attention to where politics is going. And obviously the Mountain States Policy Center did that poll showing that a majority of Idahoans would support at least a tax credit for children going to non-public schools. It's been growing and growing and growing and growing. As you talked with Senator Nichols earlier, we started the conversation with the 1038, a big ESA, and then last year we had the tax credit, and now this year there's another tax credit on the table as well. So it's been coming, and other states keep enacting it, and it's a very popular policy once it is enacted. Obviously not popular with the public school establishment, but they're obviously they want to control their little fiefdom. But people like it, families like it, parents like it, and presumably students like it as well. So I think he's gotten to the point where he's gotten out in front of it. Earlier this year, there were some reports that Governor Little and Superintendent Debbie Critchfield were starting to discuss what was going on. And one of the things I've been hearing is that it's the accountability measure that's going to be the real sticking point. The governor wants some form of accountability, however you define that, perhaps making any teachers in a private school or a homeschool or micro school be a certified teacher, or establishing some controls over what curricula the students use, or making them take standardized tests to make sure they're learning.
But Brian, isn't that the whole issue though? I mean, that's the whole point. Our schools are failing. Exactly. I mean, they're I mean, sure, are they better than some other states and they're, are they in a higher, the whole country's school system is failing. I mean, we have a generation of kids. I'm probably one of them. I mean, look at the way I speak. Sometimes it's just completely off the charts. Right. But it's like the whole system is corrupted. I mean, it's woke. It's got, I mean, from various degrees of wokeness. Right. And so when you tell, oh my gosh, when you're telling parents, well, you need to have accountability. Where's the accountability in schools? Where's the accountability for public schools? I mean, the unions, you can't fire a teacher. You just can't fire a teacher for underperforming. Like, they have to do something grossly illegal and the cops have to take them out of the class. You know, I'm sure there's probably teachers that are sitting, I don't know, I don't want to say this, it's probably wrong, but I just like, I don't understand. I don't understand. We had that, I don't know if we mentioned it yesterday. We had that clip of Representative Mickelson from last year's education presentation saying, what's to stop parents from taking this tax credit and then dumping their kids back into public school? I mean, the mentality of these people is they're so disrespectful. They think parents don't want what's best for their child. And I mean, if you're sending your kids to a private school and you're paying money, you are going to want to make sure that you shopped for schools, right? Mm-hmm. I mean,
if teacher certification and standardized tests and, strict control of curricula were all that were required to make successful schools, then our public schools would be fine. And, you wouldn't have people clamoring to find alternatives. During yesterday's House Republican leadership press conference, which followed the governor's speech and outlined their vision for what they want to see, Representative Jason Monks, who's a supporter of school choice, said that he disagreed on that issue. He feels that the accountability comes from the parents themselves, and if a private school is failing your child, you're going to take your child out and send them somewhere else. But you don't always have that option with public schools, and that's where I think this debate really needs to go. Because there is more accountability in the free market just by virtue of it being the free market. And that is, I think, a conservative position. That is a traditionally Republican position. But you get some people who get so caught up in the system as it is today that they want to extend that system to anything outside of it, which as you said, is kind of mind-boggling.
Look, Brian, I'm telling you, we're going to break a story here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, about a school in Idaho where the parents, I can't say too many. We're going to break a story. We're going to break a story. You want to talk about accountability? Where is the accountability in these public school systems? So
when a public school is failing and only 30% of students can pass, what does it get? It gets more money. When a private school is failing 70% of its students, it goes out of business. And that's where I think real accountability would be.
That's right. That's right. You're exactly right. But we heard from the governor there's going to be unprecedented investment in education and in jobs and in all the infrastructure and all this stuff. Like,
one of my favorite moments in Idaho politics was the first time I ever testified on a bill. It was the governor's education funding bill from the special session in 2022. And I happened to be one of the first people to testify. So I got up and I said, you're going to hear people say that this is an unprecedented and historic investment in public education. But remember, we heard that earlier this session. We heard it last session. We hear it every year. So how can it be unprecedented and historic if we keep hearing it? And it really made everybody else who testified after nervous because now they couldn't use those words anymore.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's what we're talking about. And the only way that it is unprecedented or historic is if they spend even more money. You know, it's as if our public school system is Ukraine. You know, I mean, I think that's kind of like what we have to start painting the Idaho public school system with blue and yellow colors, and just call it what it is. They just can't seem to give enough money to the Zelenskys of the school districts. Okay,
for a lot of people in government, their only tool, their only hammer is spending money, and so they're going to use that tool everywhere. And if that doesn't work, they think that they just need to hammer harder.
Right. Well, the tool of the electorate is voting, and this House and the Senate is getting more and more conservative, and we are holding people accountable. And so, as Senator Nichols said earlier, as we have alluded to, we believe Governor Little and leadership is understanding the winds are changing. They're blowing in a different direction, especially what's going to come down from the federal government. So we're going to keep tabs on this. And Brian, we know you will as well. Anything else you need to report today for the good folks of Idaho?
Well, I was just going to bring up one more thing from the governor's speech. He wanted to set aside $100 million for tax relief. And in the House leadership press conference, Speaker Moyle said that he wants at least 3 times that. So we're going to see some negotiation on that. This morning during the budget hearing, I saw part of it before I had to take off for a meeting. The governor's budget is taking a very conservative estimate as far as revenue, which means that they're not going to have as much money ostensibly to give back in tax relief. But I think the House is going to say, no, we can give more money back to the people. We don't need to we don't need to be so stingy when it comes to giving people's own taxes back. So that's going to be a big issue that's going to play out through the session as well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to, and of course this whole grocery tax credit. I know you've been doing a lot of research on the history of the grocery tax credit, which is what Governor Little called it. That's what people officially call it, and so it's fascinating. So we'll get into that. We got a long session here. There's a long fast session, but I'm sure we'll get into all that when those things come up. No need to belabor it now. All right, Brian. Well, let's make sure everybody knows where to follow you and keep tabs on your work.
Yeah, gemstatechronicle.com is where I publish everything, including the Idaho Insider. It gives you, click on it, go to legislature, and you can see profiles for every one of the 105 legislators. I'll be adding even more as I have time. But then follow me on X at GemStateBrian, where I'll be live tweeting most everything that I can.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for coming in. We'll see you tomorrow, and look for you online. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, very good. All right, real quick, we want to make sure you guys know where to get the best coffee, and that's lifecda.com. Life Public House is a public house and a coffee house up in here in my neck of the woods in Coeur d'Alene, and they now have their online store ready to go. You use the promo code SIGNAL, you can get 10% off your online order. And I think starting this week, a portion of their online order proceeds will go to a specific charity. I need to confirm that, so I want to make sure I get all those details right, but that's coming. But in the meantime, Mineral Ridge, the one in the middle there, that's my favorite. That's what we use in this house. I get a bag of that, at least one bag a month, to go through. Then that's my own personal stash. Then there's the family stash, which we have other flavors and stuff because, all the families are different, right? But go to lifecda.com, promo code SIGNAL, get 10% off your online order. And if you're in Coeur d'Alene, go become a member. You can become a member and get 10% off everything you order there. So it's really great. And those are great friends of ours over at Life Public House. Okay, very good, folks. What do we have? We wanted to go back to the House State Affairs Committee. Vice Chair Representative Heather Scott. Let's set this up here because we've said this a couple times already. Elections have consequences. You've heard this repeated nationally on other programs and stuff. And I mean, look, the work that we do in the off session here at Citizens Alliance is try to identify, reach out, meet, talk with, invite to our trainings citizens who want to become citizen legislators to fight for you and me, right? To fight for their own families. We all have skin in the game here. And a lot of the stuff that we're fighting against, I mean, you can go up there and yes, let's deal with taxes. Let's deal with property taxes. Let's deal with federal overreach in our states. And all these crazy projects. I mean, there's the water issue, there's Lava Ridge and the wind turbines. I mean, there's so many different things that are really important to the livelihood of Idaho. But there's a lot of conservative issues that are pushing back on this left wokeism that is destroying families. And so when we say elections have consequences, and you start to see the conservative nature that is making up the House. And we're going to get into some numbers later on in the week here about what we're doing to help. But when you look at how many more conservatives are filling House seats and how many more conservatives are filling Senate seats, and not just the seats, but also leadership and chairman positions. Like the fix can't happen overnight. We have to push back and constantly be battling against this nonsense. And one of those things is to reclaim states' rights and reclaim them in the name of many different types of issues. And so Heather Scott presented again an draft legislation this morning in committee. So let's listen to a little bit of that.
Of this resolution is just to reaffirm our state authority to regulate marriage. That should be a job of the states, not of our courts. It also encourages the Supreme Court to revisit the Obergefell versus Hodges, requesting that they reconsider. Now that takes some steps to it, but that's what we're asking. And then the other purpose of this is it would restore federalism by calling for this issue to be dealt with in the states, not in our courts. So that's just an overview.
Yeah, that's an overview. It did get printed, so it will come back for a full hearing. And again, this is about allowing the states to control their destiny, right? It's and the states, by that it means us, the people that live here. And so it's in our Constitution already, the definition of marriage. But with the federal government and the overreach of the Supreme Court saying no, states can't deal. States can't make any differences when it comes to this issue, is wrong. It's not allowing us to be a sovereign state, which is the whole point of the United States of America. We are United States. Each state is its own experiment, if you will. And the things that are going on in Idaho seem to appeal to a lot of people because, like I mentioned earlier, Idaho just passed the 2 million mark in terms of population. Just 3 years ago, it was hovering around 1,800,000, and now it just crossed 2 million. So things are working. Things are working. Things are attracting the right folks. Okay, should we take another break, guys? Let's hit another break. We'll come back and we'll tackle an article that appeared in one of the state blogs.
Coming from within the system, which the process in the system is broken.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those two founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together. Indeed. Okay, so on the heels of Governor Little's speech yesterday, and Brian Allman talked about this too, he announced $50 million investment, if you will, or setting aside $50 million to go towards some sort of school choice program, whether it's a refundable tax credit, whether it's an education savings account program. The governor's on record now as saying, look, let's try a $50 million set aside $50 million to work on this issue. And over at the Idaho Statesman, which I just refer to as a blog now because it all it is just a bunch of opinion at this point, leftist opinion. They threw up this headline: Idaho governor caves to pressure, sets aside $50 million for school choice scheme. Opinion. I mean, when we talked about this earlier, when there was a $100 million or whatever it was an $80 million investment in the launch program. Oh boy, it was a miracle. It was amazing. Let's give $80 million set aside so that high school graduates and adults can get $8,000 to go get trained by this, to go get training to go work for a company that should be training their employees anyway. That was amazing. But $50 million for a school choice scheme is how the Idaho Statesman presents itself. And reading this article, as I can see the guys back there scrolling through this article, let's just read some of this. Idaho Governor Brad Little is jumping on board the school choice freight train. During his State of the State address Monday, Little announced that his budget includes $50 million to, quote, support education freedom. And then in parentheses, there's nothing Republicans love more than attaching the word freedom to something to make it sound palatable. Okay, so make no mistake about it. These opinion writers, this is the editorial board at the Idaho Statesman. They are the ones behind these editorials. They never really put their names at the top, but if you do end up scrolling down to the bottom, and I think it's on here. Yeah, the Statesman editorials are the opinion of the Idaho Statesman editorial board, and they list a bunch of opinion editors and so forth. But it says it also includes community members Greg Lanting. And if you remember, Greg Lanting was just lost his seat in the primary of 2024 to Representative David Leavitt out of Magic Valley, the Twin Falls area. And now he's part of the editorial board, writing and signing his name to an article that says there's nothing Republicans love more than attaching the word freedom to make it sound palatable. I mean, come on, please, people. This is the kind of garbage. This is the kind of garbage that you this is behind a paywall, so you've got to pay to read this kind of garbage. But we've got an archived link here to read through it. So anyway, just wanted to comment on that because it's headlines like this. It's just they at this point they make me laugh. They usually just turn my stomach, but because who reads this garbage? Who's actually reading this garbage except the woke leftists who just salivate over their own drivel? That being said, though, I have to give a little bit of credit here to the CDA Press. I don't know if I want to give them too much credit, but they had a headline on this particular $50 million. Do we have that headline, guys? I had it up in the chat here. The headline said basically this, if I can pull it up myself. It says, Little proposes $50 million for private school expenses. Now that is a little less offensive, but it did definitely highlight that he's proposing $50 million for private school expenses, which could perk the ears of some people. And that's not, obviously, again, not entirely true. We don't know exactly what this is for, and if it will only benefit folks who put their kids through private school. If it's a tax credit, then that means homeschoolers could apply for a tax credit. Folks who are a part of a co-op or whatnot. We don't know the specifics yet. We just know that Governor Little proposed using $50 million to expand parents' options in schooling. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We pay into the system. Everybody pays into the system their tax money that goes towards unprecedented, historic investments in education, where our kids are, some do better than others, but overall, we know where our education system is in this country. So anyway, that's the mess that we're getting ourselves into. It's going to be a lot of fun. Any good comments, guys? Anybody chatting anything up there? I don't know if any comments have been coming in, but we want to make sure that we amplify your voice. So please share these clips. We're going to clip about these segments out there. Share the program and get them up there. One thing I do want to also note here is that this program is put on by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. And we're a 501c4 organization, so we're powered by donations. And so if you like what you see, if you want to keep us going, you want to keep us growing and help bring on folks like Brian Allman, and we debuted In the Know Idaho. Lily Allman's a part of the team. Your donations help expand. I mean, it's not a joke. We didn't take donations last year and then reduce the scope of the program. We grew it because we had supporters like you out there. So, guys, if you have IdahoSignal.com, you can jot down that one. That's a good place to go. But basically, IdahoSignal.com. If you head there, then you can support the program there and follow us as well. Learn where to follow us all over the channels. We'll reschedule Representative Hostetler another time. We'll get him in here, but tomorrow we have some good guests lined up tomorrow. And of course, send your emails, leave a voicemail at 208-402-5915 so we can play it on the air. And if you are out in Facebook land or YouTube land, we thank you for joining us there, but please make sure you also have an account over at Rumble and you're following our Rumble channel. And you also have an account over on X. So that way you can follow all of the signal out on X. There's a lot of noise on X, but there's plenty of signal to be had. And so you need to go over there as well. So I thank you for watching on all of those platforms. And we will be back tomorrow. And did I miss anything else in our rundown? I think that's it. If we did, we'll play it for you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you noon.
This bill, I think, puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.